ages, man has battled, bled, conquered, and evolved. Pioneers blazing new trails for themselves, and for all that came after. They are fathers, brothers, sons, husbands, mentors, and students. A gentleman and a warrior. And now we see a new frontier, a great awakening, where mind, body, and spirit become one. This is the Chronicles of Man.
But we were talking earlier a little bit about, because I guess my buddy Glenn was asking about, so if you were to have a podcast tonight, what would you talk about? And the topic that came up was, well, since it's my son's 21st birthday, I wanted to figure out what has transpired over decades and decades here in America when it comes to men or boys becoming men, like, right, the whole rite of passage. And so I've got with me tonight Michael, buddy visiting from New Braunfels. Of course, my Italiano Gotti, a.k.a. Chris.
How's it going, guys?
Of course, my son's hanging out here, Stone, Christopher. He's going to probably just hang out and have a good time. And then my buddy Glenn, he's gonna just yo. That's the headphone, by the way. You want to speak into the mic?
Yo.
No, I like this opportunity to at least record some content, because for me it's kind of a nice milestone to record for Stone in the future. Years ago, like years ahead of the time, when he comes back and says, what was it like when I turned 21, right? So we can talk about society, we can talk about personal lives, but what I wanted to talk about was, how has Rite of Passage changed over time? Because in the country we live in, there's a lot of single moms raising young boys and young girls. And since this is the Chronicles of Man podcast, I want to focus on boys, because I think we have that experience, because we are all living that experience. So I'm going to open up the floor to whoever wanted to chime in, and maybe just to talk about their background, what they felt was their rite of passage, what was a moment in their life where it was a memorable experience that was like, you know what, I'm becoming a man now. And I think that's something that a lot of young folk, they don't really think about until maybe hindsight 2020, and they look back and they're like, man, I'm actually kind of growing up now. I'm doing stuff that I didn't know I could do when I was 15, 16, 17. Y'all guys have any thoughts on that?
Actually, I remember when I was like 15, going out to Westlake, working landscaping jobs. And that was my very first, top paying job. I remember I was getting like $10 an hour, which at the time, I mean, and at my age, I felt that was like a lot, and but it was hard work. It was hard work. We'd be out there from we'd get up at like 5:30ish, get over there by like 6:30, and then we'd unload all the equipment, wake up the guy, and let him know we're there, and then he'd tell us what he kind of wanted us to do, whether it was digging up the limestone that's out there and building fences with little stone fences with it, and then also we had the yard. We always had to cut the yard and everything. So I mean, that was something big for me, because I'd be out there for like 10 hours. For me at 15, that seemed like a lot, and I mean, it was hard work. It was really hard. So
was it your decision to go work landscaping?
Yeah, it was something that, I mean, I started out with.
Was your dad saying, hey, get this friend or whatever?
No, actually, I mean, because even before that, I was doing lawn, just mowing lawns and stuff like that around neighborhoods. I'd go with my buddy. We finally had our little permits so we could drive around. So, we'd get his truck that he had just bought, an 87 Chevy. And so we'd load up all the equipment back there, and we'd go around neighborhoods and just ask, just asking door to door. That was the GoFundMe back in the day.
Yeah, the original GoFundMe.
The original GoFundMe.
And it built character in young men and boys.
Yeah.
Because it's knocking at somebody's door, especially nowadays, is quite a task. You don't know what you're going to get on the other side of that door. Yeah. And it's teaching, because everything, every category, every industry, everything is sales. Period. I mean, there's no other way around it. Even if you're in a hospital or clinic scenario, your chairside manner and your table or your bedside manner, that's all sales, and you're going to get bad reviews, bad ratings.
Yeah.
So to learn sales at a young age, I think helps set a foundation for probably all kinds of categories that you can step into. Michael, you remember anything in your past that would kind of just stick out and be like, man, I'm getting to the next stage?
Actually, I didn't feel like I was a man. Giving this is the topic, right? I didn't feel like I was a man until I moved out of the house. As long as I was at home, it was my father's house.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
And he was the man of the house, right? I was a boy. I didn't even consider myself a young man until I moved out of that house, until I came to a place of being able to make my own decisions, right? I can say where I want to go, when I want to go, who I want to talk to, who I don't want to talk to. Yeah. Working at my job, I can spend my money however I choose to spend my money. Those were things that, the freedom that I earned by not having to live in someone else's home and adhere to their rules.
They ever said the whole under my roof,
right,
et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah.
As long as you live under my roof,
exactly.
you live under my rules. Right.
Yeah.
And when I first entered in the University of Houston, I left home that summer to start working out to try to play football for the University of Houston. And the first 2 or 3 days that I did that, I caught the bus from Southwest Houston to University of Houston. And the freedom of being able to be on campus and walk around and do whatever I wanted to do, it really took me by surprise. The freedom that I saw others have, and I wanted that freedom. And so I found a way to stay on campus that summer and not go back home, to the point where I slept on someone else's sofa on campus all summer, just so that I could be on the football field and practice and work out. But really, it wasn't even so much about football.
It was for the sake of freedom.
It was for the sake of freedom.
Independence.
Right.
Independence.
I wanted that independence. And once I got a taste of it, I just never wanted to turn back. Yeah. I mean, I never really did. I didn't mind struggling to try to figure out, hey, where's my next meal going to come from? That never crossed my mind. Yeah. Like the entire time I was there. The thing that really instilled within me was that moment when I leave that house. My father it was a joke in our house. He would say, at 17 and a half, you're leaving the house, right? Yeah. And we joked about that, right? And one day I asked him, why do you always say at 17 and a half? And his response was, most people will tell their children to be out of the house by 18. Yeah. The reason I'm telling you 17 and a half is so you have a 6-month head start on everybody else. That was literally the answer, man. And but I took it to heart. Like once I left, and I have to be honest with you, that age could have been 17, that age could have been 16 and a half, that age could have been 15. That man had me so much to the point that I just wanted to be on my own. Like I wanted to stand on my own. I didn't want help. I wanted to do it on my own. I wanted to know what it was like. Right. And so that was the driving force. I think that summer made me into a young man, building new friendships, starting a life. When I graduated from high school, there was a separation that happened when I graduated from high school. I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back and talk to people from high school. I didn't want to go back and see anyone from high school. When I heard rumors of, hey, homecoming's coming up, I said, hey, good luck with that. Like I'm not trying to go back.
So was there situations at high school that might have created some bad memories that you don't want to go back, or you want to?
I was extremely popular at high school.
So what was the reason for not wanting separation and moving forward?
To be gone, to be my own man, right? My father, this whole Rite of Passage thing, right? my father had this way of making sure you understood that you weren't a man as long as you were under his roof. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, back then, 30 years ago, all you wanted was for someone to consider you a man. That's what you wanted. You wanted for someone to say, "Now that's a young man," right? You wanted to hear those words. You hated hearing people say, "Hey, you're just a boy. You don't know what you're doing yet. You're just a kid," right? That was offensive.
Yeah, I agree.
Today, it's so accepted to say to someone that's young, "Hey, you're just a kid." Well, today kids laugh. At the age when I cringed about that very same comment. That they're okay with, and I'm speaking boys in general. They're okay with, well, I'll stay at mom's house, or I'll stay at the house as long as I can. The world is not, it's mean, it's not ready for me, and I'm not ready for it. And,
Yep.
I don't want to struggle, and I was truly at a place of I'm ready. I mean, that's where it was. So when I listened to Chris talk about going out and cutting yards, right? Because back then it was, look, if you wanted a little extra money, and you didn't have a trust fund, I can trust my lawnmower. That's what I can trust.
We were talking about that. I think it was you talking about how trust fund babies didn't have the best life. Like, I think, was it you that was talking about how I appreciate the fact that I didn't grow up with a gold silver spoon in my mouth?
I really do feel like it wasn't me, but great point. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know how and who I would be at this point
if everything was given to you.
If everything were given to me and I never truly had to work for anything.
Sure. I mean, how do you understand what light is if there's no dark? Like, if you can appreciate being wealthy only if you've been poor. But if all you've ever known is wealthy and that there's no other difference, then there's no duality, there's no polarity, and you don't appreciate it. And so then you grow up in a way where you treat others almost like you belittle them because you think less of them because they're not at your level when it comes to income. But they've known that since they were 0 years old. And I think when you have an opportunity to grow up in a situation where you don't have everything given to you, you appreciate, you work hard, you become a member of society that's producing and not a drag. And and I've known people who just have all the money in the world and they're hooked on pain pills. And it's like, how can they not? So how do you, like, for example, Chris Farley, when he was at his height of his career, all kinds of money in the bank account, he still died of an overdose. Like, what kind of pain was he trying to mask? And even he might have had a journey that was from, poor to rich. But when you're growing up and you're young, I think the ability to be in a situation where you're not just giving everything gives you an opportunity to really understand who you are. Because now you're faced with challenges. You have to go. I was 14 when I got my first job, and I was a busboy at El Chaparral Mexican restaurant in Lotus. And I remember like having to go serve the beans on the table and clean tables. And for me, I enjoyed it because, well, it was 14, so it was my mom was the server there, and so at least I was able to contribute, get my own money, go buy stuff. Because at an early age, my mom was like, "If you're going to buy something, you got to go work for it. Yeah, it's not going to come just easy." And because we didn't have a lot of money in the house, and but one thing I didn't have that you had, Michael, and I don't know about you, Chris, but I didn't have a dad growing up. He left when I was 3. So when you look at role models, you're looking at TV. Because there was no YouTube back then. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was you had football coaches, you had band instructors, you had older cousins and older uncles. Mm-hmm. But then you had to kind of pick and choose who you're going to emulate because you don't know exactly. Because you're at that age, you don't know what a strong, solid man looks like. You're just assuming based upon what other people's opinions of those individuals are. And you, for the most part, try and make your own assessment of who is a good man and who's not. But a lot of these kids, especially, I mean, from what I've seen, and I grew up in San Antonio, a lot of us didn't have our dads. It was becoming an epidemic for some reason. And no one talked about it. in school. But then at the football game, you know who was in the stands and who wasn't. Because after the game, the football team was pretty small. And so when you walk away, it is my mom was picking me up, but all the other dads were the ones talking about, hey, on that one play. And I was like, I'm glad you didn't get hurt. It's kind of like different discussion than if it was a dad and just talking about plays. So growing up, I'm telling you, man, I was in a home with a mom, a grandma, and then it was me. So I was kind of the man of the house. And so situations arose. And then I, at 9 or 10, I had to start to become a little bit more of a man, but I didn't know what that looked like. My uncle was the one I had to call and be like, hey, are you come over here? And we have an issue situation where a man needs to be included. So, I mean, honest, man, YouTube was a big part of like just what does masculinity look like? Because the advice that mom or grandma gave you, no, it's not. They want to tell you, oh, just be nice, Mijo, just be nice. That's not always what the answer is. It's not construed in a way where that's the most productive or effective for a man in a very competitive world where they don't give a shit where you're from, what you're doing. It's a dog eat dog world, and you got to start to have a hard skin. You have to have a thick skin. Go work hard. Don't be lazy. And women are just more sensitive, more emotional, and so you didn't get that big push into the rite of passage. There was no like, you got to do this by this. There was no timeline in front of you that said, I got to get my ass in gear and start working hard. I did it from self-motivation and for self-independence. But it was, and that's where I feel like right now society it feels like it's inverted a little bit where boys are becoming more just soft and women are becoming a little more hard. And it doesn't pan out well when it comes to relationships because I think there's a lot of gender confusion, not with the title they have. I'm just saying like the roles of the genders and how that's going to play out. What do you feel anybody is the biggest reason or the biggest, I guess, catalyst as to why we're in the situation we are today where there's so much confusion about role models within a relationship?
I mean, it could come down with anywhere from social media. You have, the influence coming through there about, you have to be independent women, when we don't need men, we don't need y'all. And, it's like, okay, well, we can start with that. Cause I mean, I know a lot of it like branches out from there and it branches out like a wallflower through social media now. I mean, what you hear here, they hear it over there on the other side of the world too, and
I think it was the feminist movement in the 70s for me is where, and I was born in 74. So right when it was kicking in, I think the after effects of what that was about and what you're saying is this identity. And it's strong in the black community, by the way, strong black independent woman. And because at least in the Latino community, they still want to be submissive. They still want to be at least a epicenter of the household. And, I feel like social engineering is a big part of this. I think social engineering is always kind of just trying to divide the family unit. And I just look at, and I go into social engineering. I'll keep it to topic, relationships, because I was going to go into this whole social engineering. Strong, independent women are great. I agree with that whole sentiment. But what happens is when you have a family unit where there's two strong head of households, now you're butting heads. And there's got to be at least some pecking order, some structure to it, so that everybody's kind of like on the same page. I don't know if that makes any sense.
But to your point, right? To your point, single mothers, right? There's one word that really has risen through the ranks and has caused a lot of what we see today when it comes to young boys and rites of passage, right? Pride. Single moms, yes, we know you can do it. Yes, we know you can take care of them. Yes, we know that you can hold the fort down.
Agreed.
Right? But there are men out there
that want to be good dads.
That, not necessarily men that they should look at as far as that person wants to be a good dad. But there are men out there that want to be good role models. Right? But mom, can you please step aside and let that man influence your son? Because we recognize him, you recognize him, but you don't want him to have that glory. Mm-hmm. Right? There are things, though you say you can do it all, right? As a father, I can't teach my daughter how to be a good woman.
Correct.
I can guide her.
Correct. Yep.
Right. But there are certain things I can't teach her.
That's a great
how to
point.
be a good woman. Right. When she hits certain aspects of life, as she grows and develops and starts having feelings and thoughts, I'm not equipped to answer that.
Exactly.
Because I cannot say, oh, honey, I understand exactly how you feel.
Because you don't.
Because I don't. Right. And I'm honest about that. Mm-hmm. But for the women who will say, you know, I can teach my son to be a good man. No, you can't. Be honest with yourself. Because when your boy comes to a place of, hey, I'm feeling a certain kind of way, you know, when my machismo starts to hit me, right? Because it hits us as young men, 13, 14 years old, right? We start bucking up. That's what we do as young men, right? But when mom tells me, oh, honey, it's okay, right? Everything's fine. Well, there's an older man over there that's been through that phase already. Mm-hmm. And if I can get my son to that man, you know, or to even someone that's 5 years older, 4 years older, 3 years older, anyone that's progressed past that point to say, hey, I understand exactly where you're coming from, but mom can't, right? And pride gets in the way. When it comes down to it, you know, I want to be the one when my son's on television and he's winning a championship or he's doing something great or, you know, or he's made it in life. You know, I want to be the one that he waves to on television and he says, you know, thanks, mom. Right? Of course, thanks, mom. But also, you know, hey, thanks, Mr. Johnson. Hey, thanks, Mr. Walker. Hey, thanks, Mr. Look, other people need to come into play. They've always been there. Mm-hmm. We just don't want to recognize these people. Right? And young boys starve for that.
They do.
They absolutely starve.
You see a lot of that when they have the Heisman Trophy awards,
right?
And they'll talk about who they appreciate and thank for their. And it's not that, it's SBs too. I mean, all the athletes. I don't know how many times I've seen. I can't remember which one it was, but it was emotional. Football player talked about the coach, about that was his dad, and how he appreciated that he was there for him and just gave him the values and principles of what it meant to be a good man. And team sports is one of the best things a young boy can do and get involved with learning structure and learning how to be a team player and learning how to sacrifice. And you don't get those opportunities outside of that. I mean, if you're just going to school just to go to school and learn, that's great and that's fine and dandy. But education only takes you so far when it comes to being accomplished and successful in the world. You need to learn social skills. That if you don't have social, you could be the smartest guy in the world, but if you can't get along socially or understand how it is to get with the opposite sex and have an interaction that's productive and healthy, you're not going to be a happy individual. I mean, how many men today are probably just lonely and sad because they can't figure out the social matrix. No. They're still having to figure out how this game is played, probably because they weren't taught at an early age what it means to be a man, like what it means to be a protector, a provider, you know, and this is a very real issue because I mean, you see it where you got 25-year-olds still playing video games. I'm not judging you, but could you be doing better things with that time? Yeah. Like, are you accomplished? Do you have everything you want in life? Are you creating a vision for your family that could become a legacy for generations to come? Like, if we're not where we need to be at the epicenter, at the apex of what our life's going to be, then we need to look in the mirror and just say, like, am I the best man I can be? Am I the best person I can be? Health-wise, education, mental. And then the other thing, too, I was talking about the other day is I think the most denied aspect of the human element is emotional. Nobody wants to address emotional trauma, emotional issues, so that in those sensitive situations or scenarios, they can respond in a good way. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of the people who they go work out, their physical's on point, they're learning all the time, even they're spiritual, they go to church, but they don't address those issues from 0 to 7 that maybe has been traumatic. They never addressed it in a way that's healthy. And now here we are with people that are broken, who don't have all the basic principles and values of what it means to be a good man. Like the tools they're working with to create healthy relationships, I think are like splintered. It's like it's the toolbox that they're using is kind of half empty. It doesn't have, and even the hammer is kind of not really heavy. The knife is kind of dull. Like our apparatuses that we're using to create these healthy relationships, they're coming from a very disjointed and diluted. Does that make sense? It's just we're not coming in there strong with the ability to say, this is going to be a healthy relationship. We're going to have nothing but communication. We're going to have honesty. I mean, it's just very fear-based. It's very attraction in the beginning, and then it gets into fear-based. And that's where a lot of the confusion and I guess arguments come from from people that I've known in the past, and just where it's gone, even in my own situations. How do we, what would you recommend, being that a lot of men are out there probably missing some of these assets, tools, how do they go about becoming a better man if they've grown up in a single mom household, or if they've not seen, maybe they, and the other side too is maybe they were in a dad mom situation, but he wasn't the best role model. He was probably the opposite, and he grew up in a very toxic, traumatic, environment. So he doesn't even know what to look for when it comes to, well, how does a guy address that in a way where he can overcome those obstacles?
One thing that reminds me of is, like, for instance, me, growing up, I grew up with both, right, mom and dad. But one thing that I can say, I was just telling my mom about this the other night. I was like, Mom, we never really say I love you to one another here. I mean, we know we love each other, right? My brother, my sister, my dad, my mom, and myself. But like I told her, we never say that, Mom. And then she's like, well, that's just kind of like how it is in our culture, type of thing. And then I was like, oh, well, yeah, but And then I was like, another thing, I didn't say this one though, but was I noticed that we never really hug either. Never really hug. Or maybe only for like birthdays or stuff like that. But like, I mean, I wish my dad and I would hug more. Even my mom, you know what I mean?
More abrazos.
Yeah, but just stuff like that. I guess the physical. I'm very physical. You know what I mean? My little daughter, my little girl, like I hug her so much. I kiss her and everything, almost like I'm like kind of like projecting everything that I wish I was getting as I was growing up. You know what I mean? That I didn't get too much of, for my mom and dad. But I know they love me. You know what I mean? That goes without saying. But I wish there was a little more of that. But whatever, I don't know. That just reminded me about that. So,
thoughts?
I mean, if it's rite of passage, right? We're talking about rite of passage. Mm-hmm. Right? How does a young man become? There's society and how society views what a young man should be, but there's also how do I view myself as a young man, right? Because how I view myself as a young man may not really coalesce with what the world says a young man should be, right? Certain people are set apart in the way that they enter into what does it mean to be a young man, right? We forget about the aspect of there's a certain immaturity that comes along with being it. Everyone knows that, men mature at a much lower pace than women, right? So we do these things where, hey, we're goofy, we joke around, we play around, we don't take relationships very seriously at a young age. Women are more ready to settle down and, and start a family and be part of something big, at a younger age. And we just don't find ourselves there as of yet, right? That's our thing, and that is something that has been a rite of passage, for years and years and years and years, right? So the press in and press on, find that special one, how do I treat that special one when I find that special one? Whether I'm in a house where there is a father, or I'm in a house where there's a father but a bad representation of what that might look like, or if I'm in a house where there is no father, right? There are, if we can research everything else, and if we can dive into every other aspect of life to find out what's the best way to do something, and that's the problem that I have when it comes to, well, I didn't have this role model, I didn't have this, and I didn't have that, right? Okay. We live in a society with TikTok videos and YouTube and Instagram and everything else, right? Okay. If you can research how to make money, you can research aspects of relationships. You can research aspects of friendships. You know, if you don't know what it's like to be a part of that stuff, you can look for that stuff. You can read about it if you want to read about it. But the bottom line is, you know, a young man sitting at home playing video games because he's not ready to be in a relationship. I don't actually see anything wrong with that part, right? Unless that young man's just not progressing towards anything whatsoever other than, you know, I'm trying to become a platinum level with this video game, right? Now, that's a whole nother situation. But if we're talking rite of passage, you know, we came to a certain place, and I think we all here can probably agree with this. There came to a certain place where, hey, if I'm out there cutting yards and I'm doing yard work and I'm laboring, you know, my father owned a restaurant, so, you know, we worked in his restaurant. There came a certain place of rite of passage was, well, I don't want to do the labor stuff that you did to get to where you are, right? We became the microwave society. And so the hard work and dedication that it took to get to that place of where that person is right now, we don't want that. You know, I want to be where you are, but I don't want everything that comes in the middle of it. I just want to be where you are. I want your power, right? I want your authority, right? I want your paycheck, right? But I don't want everything else that goes along with how to do it. And a big part of that, whether I'm in a household with two people or one, for young men, came on the backbone of parents that literally said, my child will never suffer in the way that I've ever suffered. Anything that I can give my child. That's right. We overshot that one. I'll give you everything that I didn't have. You're never going to struggle. You'll never see pain. You'll never see this. You'll never see that. And so here we are 30 years later, right? We created these monsters. Like, let's be honest.
But also technology did.
And technology spread it fast.
You can make money off the internet being at home.
That's right.
You don't have to go mow lawns anymore. Hell, if I knew everything I know now, I wouldn't have been mowing lawns. You know what I mean?
Right.
That part of my character wouldn't have been made or created because of that, you know?
Right.
Because there's so many ways now. You have these Instagrammers now that are like Instagram models, and they get paid for that. You know what I mean? They don't have to do they don't have to go to retail jobs like we did, or restaurants or what have you, you know? So, I mean, the society nowadays is just different. It's evolved, it keeps evolving.
That's right. What's that saying? Good men create great times. Great times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Hard times create good men. It's a cycle.
It's a cycle.
Right. It is.
And it goes back and forth to where it's like that pendulum you were talking about earlier. And I think right now we're at that pendulum where we're seeing all the fruits of our weak labor for the last generation or two. And I think it's just to the point now where we all see that there's something wrong in the culture. One, I think it's a very dark culture. It's not demonic. It's kind of demonic. It's just evil. There's a lot of negative things that you see on social media, on movies, on TV.
Look at all the shootings that we're having nowadays.
And the games. The games are just so dark. They don't push the right values, and these kids are growing up with these VR glasses where their reality is death and destruction and Grand Theft Auto.
Kind of like we don't go. Well, the kids now, they don't go out and play like we used to. Ride the bikes until the sun came down,
right?
Or just, you know, imagining these twigs were like little makeshift guns or whatever, you know, and pretending we were in a little shack that was the spaceship, and you know, so there's no more
tree
of
houses.
that, you know. Now it's all iPads. My little girl, you know, at the age of 5, she was scrolling through the little tablets, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, because the mom teaches
that's
her
a big reason,
like, you know. And no, I was just saying, like, there's no more of that, you know, like,
and that kills social skills.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, but remember, our grandparents said that about us. They said that about us. You know, they said, hey, it's different. You know, it's not like when we grew up in the 50s.
And it keeps being
right.
Just like we say, oh, the cell phones. Well, y'all were doing it with the newspaper too.
Right.
They were looking at newspapers. We're looking at cell phones.
Right.
I mean, it's just different. Same thing, different times. I guess you know what I mean.
Different times.
I agree. I just feel like we're not going into the right direction. I think it's, no, I think it's, we're just not. If it is evolving, I think we're evolving into the wrong direction because you see less family units staying together, less people wanting to have kids, less people wanted to stay and I don't know if it's men or women, but any reason to get out of a relationship, they're like, I'm done. This is ridiculous.
And that's it.
I've got too many options out there. I got people hitting me on my DMs. I don't need to be fighting for any of this. There's just so many ways out now, and nobody feels guilty about it or any kind of qualm of, I'll leave this dude. I don't care. Even if he's been loyal or whatever, it's this feeling of like self-entitlement, have your cake and eat it too. Like they want to see that there's no, what's the word? Let me say it this way. San Antonio has a lot of women who are letting their parents raise their kids. And that is a very true statement. And I know a lot of people that, who, well, I don't know how many years ago, I'd be out on a Wednesday, and I know she's got 3 kids, and she's out there, and this is, I was divorced, whatever, and so my son was with his mom, but she'd be out on a Wednesday, and I'm like, don't the kids have school tomorrow? Yeah, but my mom's going to take him. I'm like,
your
what?
mom already took care of you. Why is she taking care of
you?
now?
See what I'm saying?
Like
they don't see a problem in that. It's just that they're spoiled, kind of like what you're saying. It's they overshot it. They over pampered them. They coddled them. And even on the 23, mijo, bring your clothes on Saturday. I'll wash them for you. Like, no, man, just do your own thing. Do your own, be sufficient.
So the question is, how do you get a point across to? I mean, because the mission is simple, right? How, as a mature man, do you get a young man to step more into the season of becoming
independent,
right? And whoever he is going to be as a man, because it's not for us to decide, what you're going to look like or who you're going to be when you become that man, right? It's up for you. My job is to do the best that I can, whatever part that I might play, to help navigate you to whoever that young man who's going to become a man, and we just said this, we live in a very selfish society where, hey, a lot of them, hey, I don't want a family, right? Okay. To each his own, right? It's not my job to say to that young man, no, you need a family.
Yeah,
no, you better go procreate. Right? Because if I tell him that, then he's going to run out and he's going to say, "Oh, okay, well, I'll just have 10 baby mamas then. How about that?" Like,
I'll be Nick Cannon over here.
Yeah. So, look,
calling his 11th already.
We don't need that. That's a different rite of passage. I mean, you got it. But how do men guide young men down a path of becoming the man that they're going to be? And the first thing that we actually have to look at is, what kind of man does he want to become? Because whoever that man is, there are examples of older men that they can look to. They may not look to me because I don't fit that bill, right? But there's another man out there. There's nothing new under the sun, right? So I'll do the preachy thing for a second, right? Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that's happened now has already happened before. Meaning that there are examples of people out there already who have traveled down that road and become who they are. Whoever that young man is, how do I get that young man to connect to this man? Because this man can guide that young man down some roads and travel with them and help them get to a place of where they need to be. We might say, hey, we have social media. I don't have to go out and cut yards anymore. But guess what? There's a young man out there right now cutting some yards, right? Mm-hmm. And who is his example?
His dad, probably, that started his business.
Right. But what happens if his dad isn't there? Then who does he turn to?
His friend's dad. because it's also about who your kids hang out with,
or your uncle,
because that kid is being influenced possibly by a good man, and so this kid is seeing his friend as a good example of what a good role model. You know what I mean? Because you know, birds of a feather flock together. Right. So, you know, I think that's also a good thing there, that there's a mixture in the world of I guess good men or people, period, and you surround yourself with them, and you it's contagious. You pick up what they have, you know, and so maybe, you know, you're lacking at home, but can pick up from them, you know, what you don't have over there, like examples of how to be or
a movie that sticks in my head right now, and it's actually resonating real good on Netflix. My son loves that movie, Karate Kid.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
I mean,
the movie?
Yeah, the movie.
Oh, yeah,
the original
not the
movie.
show. I forgot Cobra Kai. Yeah,
because it became Cobra Kai, which I mean, it's well written. He loves that movie. It's the whole storyline. It's very authentic. But if you go back to the original movie, and the way that Daniel he needed a father figure, and it became Mr. Miyagi.
Mr. Miyagi.
And you see how just his transition within that movie.
Yeah.
It reminds me of almost like where I came from, and just from finding men that I looked up to and tried to kind of learn their ways. I'm like a mentor,
Right.
But see, these movies, they there's some good ones, and Karate Kid's one of them.
Right.
That is a good movie.
And I think though that it teaches you, because think about this: how many young men who were living in a female majority household with no dad that saw Karate Kid, and then kind of took those roles of Mr. Miyagi and started to learn those lessons in a way that can help them be a better member of society as a man. Right. Because it comes down to, you don't know what you don't know. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so when you're 15, you have no dad, you don't know to go find a mentor. You don't know to go and seek out, advice. And I mean, if you look at all the men that have done well for themselves, millionaires, they all have mentors. They all have someone telling them how to be accountable. What are you doing today? Like, they've got people getting on their ass to be like, today you're getting up, you're doing this. And I mean, actually everybody needs that. Right. And it's not just
a lot of them say they have karate in their background. A lot of these successful people, karate or military. And it all comes down to, when you think, what do those things have? Discipline. Exactly. So I think one way to influence your child would be starting with discipline. I'm not washing those dishes. You wash them. No. She'll wash them later. Watch. And you come back, they're still there. It's like, oh, shit, you weren't playing. I guess, okay, I'll wash them. Leave them there till they wash them, and they learn that, hey, you got to, do this, or do your laundry. I'm not doing that shit anymore. Yeah. And you let it pile up. I told you I'm doing it for you. So I'll teach you how to work the machine. Come on, let me go show you. Or, I can't iron your clothes today, and I'm probably not going to be able to anymore because I'm yada, yada, yada. So let me teach you how to do that too. Or, it just comes down to self-sufficient and being very disciplined. At least that's how it was with me. Yeah, I can't even remember. What was it like? I wasn't even a teen yet when I started washing my own dishes, man. And like when I learned how to wash my own clothes, like the washer and dryer and everything, and and ironing and all that. I mean, I've dated some girls where they're like, "Oh, you know how to iron? Oh, you know how to cook? Oh, you know how to do this? You know how to do that? Oh, you know how to work on cars too?" And this, and I'm like, I mean, to me, it's like, why is that so surprising? And it's like, I guess now they don't, I don't know, the values and in a man, as far as, what a woman sees, it's not what some of us, I don't know.
And it could start with something so small. I remember one of the videos that I watched, I like Jordan Peterson. I listened to a lot of his content. And one of the things he said was, you want to go out there and conquer the world. You want to go and be this, amazing hero and just make all this money, but your bed's not even made. Can you at least make your bed? And I thought about that. This is years ago. I'm like, you know what? He's right. I need to make my damn bed every morning.
That's a good point.
Because because you know how your head is. I don't know if you guys, but if there's clutter, or if there's those glasses earlier on the counter, like I didn't like seeing them anymore. I'm like, that's just too damn cluttery.
Yeah, no.
You can't go out there and conquer the world if your room's like a mess.
You have to conquer this first, this area
Right,
in
yeah.
front of you, before you can even conquer anything outside
It's
of
a-
you. You know what I mean?
I was talking about that with Michael yesterday, that I'm trying to get my health legit, trying to get my body legit. And you can't, if you want to be all productive and successful and do all those other things,
Start with yourself.
but you can't even conquer yourself.
Yeah.
And
Love
the,
yourself first, and then you'll be able to love
and the
others.
discipline is right. But today I tried to do that water fast. I was a day and a half into it, and I took a bite of meatballs and some chicken.
But it was for your son's birthday. So,
But that's where it starts. Like,
yeah.
and the thing is that there's a sense of accomplishment that comes with it, that if you can do that 7-day water fast, man, it's good for your health. It increases your telomeres, all kinds of nice things, T cells. So that's kind of what I'm saying. So I think for the most part, we've talked about some good information tonight. And what I wanted to do is really just have an open discussion about how do we help, I guess, 10 years from now, if somebody hears it, this content, this information, hopefully it's something that will kind of be a marker of our time as to what we were kind of going through and how we can fix it. Because I think there's a lot of systems that need to be revamped, education system, healthcare system. But I think the idea of how do we become a provider of content, and whether we do this or not, but how do we provide content that's going to help young men become better men? And it doesn't have to be something just overnight. It's just it's a slow, constant progression of consistency, of discipline, of learning, of seeking mentors, of actually going out there and doing hard work and not being afraid of the hard work. Like, there's nothing that comes in life that's freaking easy. And if it was easy, you're not going to cherish it. You're not going to see it as important or valuable.
Kind of like at the beginning where we were talking about self-entitlement, these rich kids are...
Yeah, but where are they going to be in 15, 20 years?
Exactly.
Even if their parents were rich and wealthy. I mean, what happens if this business goes down?
Because we've been from the bottom to the top, so to us going back down, well, we can get it up.
We can go back up.
We can get it again, we know how to do it. And we've worked the ground to the top. They don't. They've got a trust fund for their trust, for the, and so forth, and like these Kardashians, for instance, talking about like self-made billionaires or whatever. It's like, no, you weren't self-made. You know what I mean? Like, you had all this money already, you basically had a stack just there, and, and all the connections already and everything. And I'm not hating, you know what I mean? That's awesome. But like, I respect more of those that came up from nothing, you know what I mean? That built their empire with nothing, like sleeping in their office, hustling.
I like those stories.
I love that,
Gary Vaynerchuk's one of them.
Yeah. I think Elon Musk even said that he used to do that with his brother when they were doing the PayPal. Yeah, when they were first barely starting up the websites and all that, they had the website up during the day, and at night they would be coding. And they were like so hard up that like when he was dating the girl, he was like, well, we live in the office, you know what I mean? So that he would have to bring him there, and they'd shower at the YMCA and stuff like that. I mean, and look where he's at now, you know what I mean? And it's like, and someone to look up to. He wanted to send a shock through the world by starting something new about EVs, for instance, right? And he did it. That was his goal. He wasn't trying to be the best EV automaker, right? And he said, I just want to be an example and set the world going towards that direction. Mm-hmm. And he did it. Look at everybody now. Everybody's racing for that. But talking back to role models, I mean, like, that's someone to look up to and aspire to. I mean, and,
also getting a brotherhood going with men that you trust and that are like-minded, who are ambitious. What's that saying? You're the product of the 5 people around you.
Yep. If they're smoking, you'll be the 6th one.
Right.
It's just 5. 6 of you or 5, whatever.
So it's just being more ambitious. What were you saying, Mike?
Well, it's from a ministry standpoint, like this past week, there were 3 women's conferences that I knew about. And I knew that because of, a lot of the women that I know. And over the last year, it made me think, like, over the last year, I've heard about this women's conference and this women's conference and this women's conference and that women's conference and, you know, and this speaker coming into town and that speaker coming into town and that speaker coming into town, all women, right? I have no issue whatsoever. Like I'm all about women's empowerment. I really am, you know, and anyone that knows me, especially the women, will tell you like, God, yeah, he backs it. I do. The issue is if I never researched a men's group, a men's conference, a men's anything, I haven't heard a peep about that setting, right? So this past month and a half ago, Joyce Myers came into town, right? And it was a big deal. She came to Austin, you know, and it was posted all over the place. People said, well, Joyce Myers is coming, Joyce Myers is coming, Joyce Myers is coming, right? Okay. And at the bottom of it, it said, you know, men, you're welcome as well. Right? Okay. You know, almost like an afterthought. Right?
Right.
But, and not knocking that, because I know that, hey, we want inclusion. The problem is, why have we not set up, why have we not established that type of thing? Why have we not done that?
They think that we have already.
Well, they think that society is set up in that way, that it's already available, but it's not marketed in that way. And where we miss it is that if a young man wants to know, how do I get in contact with a group of men so that I can mentor, where do they go? Right? Who do they speak to? And I'm not talking about on a federal level or, you know, on a state level. I'm not even talking about on a local level. I'm talking about from a neighborhood level. Start there. Where do the young men in my community go? Right? Because that's where it has to start. Right? Even if it's a single mom raising her son, where are the other men? You know, the entire neighborhood isn't full of single women raising their sons. Right. So there's some men out there. But
what does the Bible say about men looking for orphans and helping those who are fatherless? Isn't there scripture that says men should go help?
Well, it talks about older men helping younger men and older women helping younger women. You know, he speaks very highly of that, you know, it should be older men mentoring younger men and older women mentoring younger women. And if the one sitting on the throne says, look, this works best. Since the time I created all of this, this works best, right? Then evidently he knows something that we don't know. He knows that when he created men, he also created examples for other men that would come behind those men to learn from. At least have the knowledge of, whether they want to listen to it or they don't want to listen to it, at least have the knowledge at your fingertips. Right? We talk about like this, like the whole Bible thing. They say, you know, basic instructions before I leave earth. Oh, okay. Well, that's in there. There's some instruction in there. Right. So again, if I want to know not how to be what society says, what is a good man, right? And I think that's one of the mistakes that we often make. You know, we say, what's a good man? What I want to know is, who is a good man for that young man? Right? Because someone is able to help that person transform into who he's going to become. Not every man is good for that young man. We may see a man and say, wow, that man is great. Right? Well, not for that man. Not for that young man. He may be the worst thing in the world for that young man. But he's the best thing for this young man.
Comes down to chemistry and personality and just different nuances that
it really comes down to, if I see what path I'm headed down, I know that there's another person out there that's down that same path. And there's always someone that I can say, hey, this person is successful. But the thing that we often miss is failure is a part of success. Right? If I see someone that failed at something that I'm trying to do, why am I still not trying to reach out to that person to say, hey, where did you mess up? You know, where can I learn from that? So again, women's conferences all over the place, right? women have grown to teach, and that's what I love about what they do right now. Women have grown to teach other women. They're not afraid to teach other women. They're not jealous to teach and grow other women, right? They know that in order for them to come up through the ranks, hey, I want you to succeed. Now, men, we're a little bit on the macho side.
Yep.
Right? Sometimes, especially as young men, we find ourselves.
Don't tell me what to do.
Don't tell me what to do. Right? But if you catch them at a young enough age, you get ahead of that. Right? Don't try to catch them when they're 20. Our dumb age. Don't try to catch us at that age. Don't catch me when I'm between 20 and 25. I'm not trying to hear you at 20 and 25. But if you catch me at 10, if you catch me at 11, if you catch me at 12, I want to hear a little bit about what you have to say. Now, once I hit 13, I'm getting a little froggy, voice is kind of breaking up a little bit, right? I go from that high pitch to, every once in a while it kind of drops down on me a little bit. People look at you like, man, what's wrong with you?
Got the peach fuzz kicking in.
Got the peach fuzz kicking in, right? School is telling me, hey, you need to shave, man. You have that little patch on your cheek. I'm like, no, I'm a man. Like a man. It's no shave November. I want to shave my patch. We get to that point. You have to catch us before we get to that point. But an older man knows that, right? An older man knows, hey, catch me when I'm young, because I'm going to hit a period where I don't
point of no return.
Right. I'm not going to listen.
Unless you're really open to advice and constructive criticism. And
in most cases, honestly, we're not. And in most cases, we really aren't.
But that's where, you can't say this for everyone, but that's where, you have your mom, she's a little softer. You have your dad, he's a little harder. Mm-hmm. And you get a little bit of compassion from your mom and hardness from your dad. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And you're able to infuse those together.
Right.
Duality.
And it does create this,
but what I
certain
feel
type of person. Yeah.
But what I feel that is coming out of this table right now is the men that have the ability and know that they have a good head on their shoulders, and whether they be married with kids, they need to be proactive in their community and seek out young men who wouldn't mind hanging out for a Sunday afternoon for a game of basketball, with his kids, and kind of have discussions in a way where you play your games afterwards, go get some pizza, and just say, "Hey, Jimmy, what's going on? How's life doing?"
Mm-hmm. Right.
And allow them to see what's in their head, so that there's some opportunities for not pushing an agenda or anything, but hearing him out, letting him hear what he would say to another male, because he probably can't say it to his mom.
Right.
True.
And you don't want to do it in a way where it's awkward, right? If you walk in, "Hey, Jimmy, your mom told me to come talk to you.
Yeah.
You're having some issues at school."
Right.
No, that's not the way it works.
Right.
The kid's if he's got issues at school, he's already got something he's battling with. It's you got to break bread with these kids. You got to go out there and sweat a little bit with some basketball, some football. Yeah, meet them where they're at, right?
Okay. So how about this? So if we meet them where they're at, and we got to roll it back, because I'm going to roll this thing back to 1992, right? University of Houston, right? Sitting on the sofa. Guys coming in that are supposed to be going to class, not going to class. Chalkboard on the wall, dry erase board, about 15 names on that joker, and a Madden tournament happening all day long, right? 1992, right? We sat around and played video games just like these kids do today. There are a number of guys that got into NBA 1999, 1992, 1993, Madden, that we joke about. Man, remember what those figures looked like back in the day, man, the little blocks. We joke about that kind of stuff. there are a number of men that sat in living rooms and were glued to the TV playing those video games. Those men can talk to the young men that are doing it right now. Right? Those men can sit down with those young men and say, 30 years ago, man, I was you. I did that.
Graphics are a lot
And
better
it's
now.
good.
Right.
EA Sports, let's
Right,
go.
EA Sports, right? You know, we joke about, and some of them built careers off of it,
Yeah.
right? But the thing is, you know, to infiltrate that area of those men did that, and these men and these young boys are doing this over here. Again, we got to catch them at a young age. So to find ways to catch them at a young enough age to where you can influence them, right? That's the whole key. Catch them at a young enough age to influence them. It's like a child being born and later on in life saying, I hate this person because of this, or I hate this person because of that. No, you were told and taught that. Mm-hmm. You weren't born hating anyone.
Correct.
Right? So when we see someone over here and we say, man, I can only imagine what you'll look like over here, and they're struggling to get there, is because someone hasn't caught them at a place of showing them how to get to that place. How many of them are sitting right now playing video games trying to figure stuff out? Lost, confused, they don't know what to do, so they get up and start playing a video game because, you know what, thinking about life and thinking about reality and thinking about what it means to be a man, because let's be honest, you know, the older generation of men are out there already saying it left and right. Boy, this generation today is just crazy. And if you say it enough, and if I'm a young man and I'm sitting here and I don't know what to do and I don't know how to get to that place, I'm tired of hearing the criticisms from these people. So stop telling me the problem and give me the solution. Mm-hmm. Right? If I'm sitting there and I'm just bottled up with emotion, frustration, not knowing what to do, how do I get? Okay, you're telling me that I'm worthless, right? I mean, we have a whole generation. Like you can see it on social media. Gen X versus this gen
Yeah, I've seen
versus
those
that
videos.
gen, right? I mean, that is just like we're beating an entire generation of young men up right now with, you old ghosting son of a gun, you're just no good. You know, we are telling them they're no good. And we're telling them in droves. Like you will just amount to nothing. Man, when I was your age, man, when I was your age, man, when I was your age. Okay, you know what? Right. I've heard you say it enough. And if my mind isn't strong enough, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to believe you.
Yeah, it's true.
You're right. I'm no good. I'm just not good for anything. So I'm going to sit here and play my video games because I don't know what else to do, because you've already told me that I'm worthless for society. You've already told me that I'm probably going to be in a failed relationship. You've already told me that, you know what, I'm not going to ever get out of my mother's basement. Right? We condition these young boys to believe the very things that's coming out of our mouth. Remember, the power of life and death is in our tongues.
Tongue is the sharpest tool.
It is the sharpest tool. And we are beating these kids up, right? But just like we can say these negative things, we can also speak positive over these kids, right? We can tell these young boys, man, I can see that you're going to become a great man one day. You're going to do some powerful things one day. I can see it.
Make them believe it.
Make
Believe
them
it.
believe it.
Reality.
Right.
Yeah. Manifest it.
Right. And then watch them run with it. Right? Watch them believe so much that they have no choice but to get up and do something about it. Because
what do they say now? Believe in yourself.
Right. Believe in yourself.
Doesn't matter if anyone else doesn't believe it, as long as you believe it.
Right.
And if you can help by sprinkling some belief into them, that's a good starting point already.
Right. And instead of it just being moms telling them that, right? How about a man just say it, right? Yeah, I mean, I just want to applaud you for, you know, I mean, I think you're going to be great.
Instead of him just saying, man, you suck.
Right.
Or whatever, you know, which is the, I guess, typical, stereotypical thing that they say.
The rite of passage, right?
Yeah.
Because what did our dad say? You know, they, oh, man, you just won't amount to anything. You know what?
Where did I go wrong?
Right.
Where did I go wrong?
Right. You think about our rite of passage, right? You're like, look, they can't handle our dads.
Oh, they'd be
They'd crumble.
the old school dad.
You know, like I've told my boys that, like, oh, boy, yeah. Back in the day, your grandfather, you wouldn't be able to handle that. That's a whole nother level. Like I have 3 boys. I've told my boys, oh, no, you don't understand.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. That's different. So what do we do? They do need to toughen up a little bit. I mean, honestly, they really do. And that's, it's not a popular thing to say today. Like, hey, you need to be a little bit tougher. Your mind needs to be a little bit tougher.
Thicker skin.
Yeah, your skin. Like, I joke with some of the guys that I went to high school with, and I've told my boys this. We used to have rank contests, right? Like, it was just all in fun. So, because now you can't really say much, and
It's
God
ridiculous,
forbid, right? God forbid, you can't say anything. But Rite of Passage for boys, right? I think about football games when we were on the bus together, or track meets after track meets. We had these ranking contests, right? Like, even when you just had the worst football game or the worst meet of your life, we were on the bus and it was quiet, and then all of a sudden someone would jump up and just look at somebody and say, "Man, your mama's something," right? It would just come out of nowhere, and then everyone would start laughing. And we would all cut up about it. And the thing is, if you didn't have thick skin, like, please don't open your mouth and say anything. Like, because it's going to be really bad for you. Mm-hmm. Right? This would be a bad night for you.
Payback isn't exactly.
Don't throw stones.
Yeah, I mean, but locker room talk, right? Like, let's be real. Rites of Passage. How many young boys, I've sat in barbershops growing up, right? How many young boys listen to older men in barbershops talk about the stuff that they would talk about, right? You would learn by listening to these men talk about the things in a casual setting, right? Nothing too formal, just a casual setting of just hanging around these guys, right? If I go out to a yard and I see a bunch of guys working in a yard, right? These dudes would talk about some crazy stuff, right? They're talking about their wives at home and, and the stuff that they have to deal with, and it's a big joke. Man, you already had it in your mind what it was going to be like when you got married, because you're like, man, these dudes all talk about the same thing, man. Right? That's just what we did. That was that rite of passage. So instead of these formal settings of how to sit in front of them and tell them what it's like to become a man, the example of being in the midst of a group of men.
Meet them where they're at.
Meet them where they are at, right? And get into some of that kind of stuff, so that they understand, like, and they don't fall apart, right? The mentality is different. The mentality is very different when it comes to hanging around a group of men, right? Because even today we say, just boys being boys, but we say that amongst men. We don't say that amongst the young men, because we don't, like, from our age group, we don't recognize, the things that they do. So if I'm sitting in the basement playing video games all day, we don't walk up to them and say, "Oh, it's just boys being boys." That's just not something we say.
So I feel like there's a couple of things coming out of this. One, we need men's conferences. We need to be more active in putting those together. And then once that's created and you've got that overall structure of the conference, from that should stem, and we call them small groups in church.
Sure.
But instead of giving it titles that are similar to a church setting, because many of these people aren't there yet in regards to going to church, and it could be just a gathering, where you're just hang out with some boys, and maybe like a pickup game, where it's a setting where you're inviting, all boys, but try and target the ones who don't have a dad. Mm-hmm. So that you can have an opportunity to have some discussions, some conversations, meet other boys. The other thing too is, like, find out which are the ones that are playing video games all day with really not a lot of friends, and drawing them out, getting them more social, being more compassionate with those who. The other day I was at church and they were doing water baptismals, and there's a young boy there. He's like maybe 8 years old, and before they do the dip, they'll let him speak their testimonial. And he was, the pastor was like, I forgot his name. So tell me, what do you want to get baptized today? He's like, well, I don't have any friends, and I just feel like now that I've come to church, Jesus is my best friend. And so sometimes it's kind of lonely, but at least at night when I say my prayer, I'm like, I was like about to freaking pull out the handkerchiefs, and I was.
Who cut some onions out here? Man, who's cutting them right now?
It affected me so much, and No, but everybody's looking straight because at this point, because I was like, oh my God, like to feel that boy's pain. Because I mean, so when I was 8, I had a bunch of cousins and we always had people around. Yeah. But when you're that young and you have nobody to call your friend, the impact of that could be long lasting. So it's those like I was thinking about, man, how was it to live in that boy's shoes? Because I feel like as a person who I think I understand people pretty well when I meet them, energy, whatnot. So when I try and enter that boy's shoes, oh my gosh, my heart was killing me. I was like, this is too much pain. I don't want that little boy to be lonely. And we need to be cognizant and look out for these things. Like ask questions. Hey, so how you doing, Julie? How's your boy? Yeah. I heard you got divorced last year. It's terrible. I'm sorry to hear that. How's little Jimmy doing? Is he good? Listen, Saturday, me and the boys are going to go to. You think Jimmy want to come along and just hang out just for a couple hours and just don't be afraid to have the conversation.
Right.
Just put it out there.
Right.
And what you're doing is you're probably giving her some time to have her own space to kind of think out some things too. But at the same time, you're building the future. Mm-hmm. You're creating a foundation for young men that know okay, because we don't know what the situation was during the divorce, but maybe he left for a good reason because he's just not a good person. And maybe for the first time in that young boy's life, he's going to see a positive role model that he wants to emulate and become something that is more than what he saw in his dad. You know what I mean? But we don't know. And we're not asking those questions. All we're doing is creating a safe space, and I hate saying that word because it's overused, for that young boy to be like, hey, maybe I can learn some different stuff and kind of look to other people to learn some better ways than what I've seen in the past. Because obviously that didn't work out.
Right. Yeah.
Mom and dad aren't together anymore. So that's where I see like we can create some kind of men's conference. And we don't have to call it, I mean, it just could be a men's conference. It's just like a brotherhood, getting together.
Right. It doesn't have to be a conference. I mean, you said it right. Pickup games in basketball, right? See, stuff we take for granted. When we were kids, we'd go find pickup games all over the place, right? You just go play pickup basketball. It was just something you do. We didn't schedule it. It was hey man, we're going to go play some ball. You want to go play? Right. And then along the way, a bunch of people just started showing up, right? And then the courts were full of people. But we're in a different time now.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are a lot of distractions. Right? We have a lot of social media distractions. Okay, all right. We have to deal with the fact that we live in this era. Right? We're not about to shut it down. Right? If anything else, it's just becoming stronger and stronger. The presence of it is becoming stronger and stronger. So how do we utilize that? Right? If everyone else utilizes social media to gain in other areas of their life, then why aren't we using it to gain in the area that we feel that it's necessary? I'm
cool with starting some kind of pickup social program.
Well, and see, that's what I'm talking about. Like a social media platform, where you boys to men, right? A social media platform that
how do I
and you can use that as a theme song of but whatever it is, it's just like and you start off and you start building traction with that, right? Hey, boys to men, come on in.
The good times.
But if we want to talk about some stuff and we want them to hear some stuff, right? And then in the midst of that, then you can start talking about, hey man, we're going to go do this. We're going to go do that. We may take a fishing trip over here, because you're competing against some pretty heavy things out there right now. So the things that you do to get that young man's attention, it has to be some pretty good attractions, right? I mean, it can't be the old boring, dull, hey man, we're going to go and sit next to the dock and, we're going to fish a little bit. They don't care. They don't want to hear that.
We got a DJ to the court.
They don't want
not a bad idea.
Right. See, so we have to take the things that we like to do and see, this is where we have to blend some things. We take stuff that we like to do and we add stuff they like to do at the same time. Right? So if we're going to go out and play a little basketball, like, look, hey, DJ such and such is going to be at the basketball course, man. We're going to go hoop it up a little bit. Okay, here we go. So let's do some stuff like
a little barbecue.
Right? We do stuff that we know is going to attract them out there. Right? We get them involved, but we can't just throw into that the things that we think they need. Right? It doesn't work. has to be something that attracts them at the exact same
It'd be
time.
kind of cool to take a camera out there and interview them.
Well, I mean, you could.
I don't know if we can with their age, but
I mean, if they're old enough, you can. So here's the thing: they like to be on social media, right? So hey, look, man, come out to the park this day, that way. We're going to have DJ this out here. We're going to have or maybe a band out there, whatever, man. We're going to kick. We're going to have a good time. The young men. There's going to be some older men out there, but also at the same time, look, you want to get you want to get your status up on IG. You want to get your TikToks going. Mm-hmm. Let's go, right? What's the newest craze that you can create when you come out here?
Yeah.
On TikTok, come out here and see us and let's show us what you got, right? That kind of thing, because then their creativity starts to really go. Because hey, man, look, I want to get my likes up. I need to get my likes and my comments up, man.
What would be a good name to call this type of series?
I don't know.
Manosphere?
I don't know. Well, I mean, but Boys to Men, is the theme. But I agree, shouldn't be the name.
Well, I'm talking about our chats right now. Talking about men stuff.
No idea. Put it out there and see who comes back with what.
Yeah.
Put it out there and let put it out there and let some young men throw some stuff out there and vote on which one of them has the best idea. Get them involved.
I think it'd be cool to launch something like that from this podcast, and we can even record the podcast live from the courtside.
That'd be cool.
And if the parents are there, we can probably get their permission to record and just record content and just see what they're going through. We could have like the roundabout mic where it kind of creates the whole, and just have that group that maybe just lost, and just have them kind of chime in about what's going on. This is a bigger idea. Could be a really cool, I guess, ambiance. The whole vibe could be really, really cool. Have 2 or 3 cameras, just recording the games, barbecue, DJ. It's focused on young boys, getting them hooked up. Because on the back of that, we could have a mentor program that's already ready to roll. That say, you know what, you should be with this group. They're going to be doing this, and just have like small group, but in a way where they're learning things like life lessons,
right?
Before they have to go hit their head on the brick wall.
But also so that there's not a large gap between the age, right?
No, I agree, because
you got to find that middle age.
Well, that kicks me out.
Right. Well, no, you have to find that middle. Like you want to have all groups involved with it. All age groups. Generationally speaking, you want to be able to transcend this thing from boys at a certain age to men at a certain age, right? So that they all understand one another. It's not just about bringing young men into this man over here.
It's like an incubator.
Well, at the same time, it's also teaching the man that's over here, how to communicate and understand the young boy that's over here, right?
Different events for different ages.
Different events for different age groups, right? Like tailgating at football games, right?
Be a little more older.
Rite of Passage, but at the same time, but hey, man, that's a Rite of Passage kind of thing, man. Like, look, young dudes go to a football game. Hey, you want to know what it's like to tailgate? Not just sit in the stands, but look, the experience of tailgating. Hey, man, we don't even need to go in the game. We can sit outside, queue it up, have a good time, man. And because there are people out there that have tailgating systems set up already.
Yeah.
Find the guys that have that stuff and say, look, man, we want to bring a group of young men in. Bring them out here and let them tailgate, let them have a good time, right? And then for those that do want to go to the game, get them in the game. Right? Mm-hmm. Get those guys into the game. So let them go see a game, but not just college games, right? How about some pro games? Mm-hmm. Right? So the kids that like to play basketball, like, look, we have 5 tickets for a group of 5 young men. Hit us up on TikTok, hit us up on IG, hit us up on these social media platforms. We're going to draw some names out, and the 5 names we draw out, man, we have 5 tickets. We're going to take you to a basketball game, but not just the regular basketball games. Like, come on, man. Like, you want to see a superstar, right?
Well, we can find some sponsors, probably.
Well, but what I'm saying is, we want to take them to the games that everybody wants to go to. We don't want to take them to the games that no one wants to go to, right? I don't want to take you to a game where there's a stadium that seats 40,000 and only 1,500 people sitting in there. Like, no, look, I'm not going to do you that injustice. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm going to take you to a game where some people actually want to show up. So we get some sponsors, get some tickets to that. Or how about some people that own some skyboxes? Mm-hmm. You want that experience? Let's get some men in to come in and say, look, we need some skyboxes. We want to take a group of young men that are looking to be mentored. We want to bring them in, introduce you to them.
And then we have the FC, or Austin FC.
Oh, that's true.
That's a local place.
That's a local place.
And that's very popular right now in Austin, and surrounding Austin. Like, a lot of people want to go to those games, those Austin FC games.
Some great ideas pop out of
So
this
that would be a
podcast.
popular thing.
Yeah. And cycle through this stuff, man. And then you can start branching off into, because remember, we want to find, you have young men that are already moving in certain areas of their life. How do we get them attached to the men that are already in those areas, right? It doesn't have to be just sports. It can be something as simple as, hey,
Music, too.
Music, right? Hey, I know a producer over here. I know a promoter over here. I tell you what, we're going to work on some backstage passes to come to these concerts and see if we can't get you to come in. Right?
Be inspirational for them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Show them what the better route in
Right.
life,
Right.
or
Path.
path.
Well, and it's an option, right? Give them options other than the ones that they've been presented with,
Right.
which is where they are, and then someone negatively telling them, "Boy, you will never surpass where you are right now."
I like what's come out today.
But I think inspiring them,
Inspire these
is going to
young
do a
men.
lot, because you can do great things.
You wanna do
inspired, you know what I mean?
You want to do a part 2?
We can. Yeah.
Because I think the way that this is moving is going to create some nice, like some organizations that could probably sprout out and hopefully become impactful in a way.
I can see that.
We can play with some names on what it could be called. Boys to Men might be the evolution of how that looks. But this is what, again, at the beginning of this, I was just like, yeah, let's record some content. Because what popped in my head was Rite of Passage and turning a certain age. But I think what's coming out now is that we could create something kind of cool for these young boys to give them some sense of direction, some sense of belonging, somebody that cares, mentorship, learning leadership skills, learning social skills. I mean, a lot of kids are just playing video games. But if we can have a chance to maybe do it again, I don't know if you guys are down. I think it's productive.
Well, picking spots that's conducive to even do it, and bringing someone along to even be a part of it, man.
The podcast?
Yeah, pick some spots. Pick some spots where you can get in touch with some of these young men in certain places, man. I mean, you want to meet them where they are, right? I mean, I'm coming to you from a standpoint of, the church thing, right? Mm-hmm. Come as you are. You don't have to come to me. I can come to you.
You think maybe go to my church and record there?
I'm saying meet them where they are. Right?
Yeah.
Go to some places that they'd be willing to go to.
I don't know if I can record, though, if they're that young.
Well, I mean, we're talking about catching these young men, right? Because the topic of this is Rite of Passage. So Rite of Passage means that they are at a place where they're becoming young men.
That's true.
All we're trying to do is guide them. Right? So if we can influence a certain age group and then influence that age group to reach the age group that's coming up right behind them, you don't have to deal with that.
Even within their own family.
Like within their own family. Right? That can be, and the involvement of the church, sure. Because guess what? If you get a hold of them there, and then other churches start to get involved, or other, community organizations, maybe a YMCA or a Boys and Girls Club, something like that, they have access to that.
I'll start putting some stuff on paper. I'm going to just jot some ideas down. Are y'all down with being mentors?
I mean, I think everyone should. The commitment is there, right? Well, and what I mean by that is, to commit to something like that, you can have enough people to where the commitment doesn't have to really pull you away from your life, whatever your life is. If you want to commit to one day a week worth of, hey, man, I just want to hang out with these young boys and, talk with them and do my thing. Okay, that's fine, right? You don't have to be a full time if you get enough men in it. Mm-hmm. They just need examples, and plenty of them. And there are plenty of men out there, man. Whether it be in the IT sector, look, man, there's a bunch of men still out there working on cars. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, we've come into an era where the cars are computers.
Shoot.
Right?
not going to be much of that.
It's not going to be,
I mean, down the road.
Right.
Yeah,
You know, down the road, that's going to
we are heading that way.
Yeah,
We
we're
are
headed
heading
that,
that
but
way.
we have to understand that though, man. Like, you know, we have to understand that there's that transition.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, there are still some people that know enough about them, even the new cars, that, hey, you know, someone else is coming up that one of these young
Like a
boys-
trade program?
like a trade program where they, you know, they get to learn about that stuff. But, you know, coming from a father of a son who's actually a mechanic and had to go to IT school to do it.
Go to the Tesla plant out
You know?
there in Del Valley.
I mean, you know,
Out here.
I mean, just because, you know, how do we help them transition into areas that we see that are growing?
Well,
To help make that transition.
let's
easier
talk
for
about trade programs on our next one. And if y'all want to do it in 2 weeks, I'm down with the Brown all over town.
All right, Charlie Brown.
You know what? Is that cool?
And we have to get some extra
That'd be
voices on here, by the way.
Yeah, he's losing his voice.
For sure next time.
He'll record next time.
Long-winded, so I try to.
He'll record next time. No, I appreciate you guys coming by for sure. Being a part of. Oh, you want to do it real quick? Being a part of Stone's 21-year-old Rite of Passage. But yeah, it's been a good chat. I think it's a lot of things that came out today that I wasn't thinking about at all. But the flow of the content was like, man, you know what?
Just naturally. Just kind
This
of
would be a
unraveled.
cool little program to put together for the upcoming kids that might need some leadership, some mentorship. So thank you, Michael. Thank you, Chris, for coming on out. We're gonna put this. I'm gonna edit this probably tomorrow and then put it up on YouTube, maybe by Monday or something. But any last thoughts? Cool. No.
Discipline, inspiring,
Seek out a mentor.
seek out a mentor.
For those who have the ability,
Belief.
seek out those who need a little bit of guidance, and don't be afraid to have a conversation. Especially when you have the right intentions, it's not going to be stressful. It's going to be very, very smooth, but awesome. Until next time, peace.
All right.
Remember, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. So for those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, rise, speak your mind, stand for what's right, and fight for the innocent, the weak, and the orphaned. The time has come for the people to reclaim their power. The world needs the warriors of righteousness. Men, defend your tribe. Heroes aren't only in the movies. They're on the streets, in our homes, and in the mirror. People, take your proper place in history and commit to building a legacy. This is our time. And until next time,